You think you know your neighbors. You think a wave across the lawn or a polite nod over the recycling bins tells you who they are. You see the manicured hedges, the fresh coats of paint, the luxury SUVs parked in the driveways, and you assume peace. You assume stability. But you're wrong. You're looking at the stage, not the actors. You're watching the show they want you to see. Me? I don't watch the show. I watch the rehearsals. I watch what happens when the porch lights flicker off and the heavy velvet curtains don't quite close all the way. My name isn't important. What I do is what matters. I'm the historian of this cul-de-sac. I'm the keeper of the archives. And the file I'm going to open for you today, File 402, the Henderson Residence, is the crown jewel of my collection. It's a story about a kiss, just one kiss, and the absolute, scorched earth, nuclear winter that followed it. If you have a weak stomach for cold, calculated destruction, you might want to stop listening. But you won't. You're just like me. You want to know what happened behind the beige stucco walls of 402.
Let's set the scene. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday is trash pickup, and I was already at my post in the upstairs guest bedroom window. It gives me a perfect 45-degree angle down into the Hendersons' driveway. I have a pair of Steiner 10 by 50 military-grade binoculars. They cut through twilight like a knife. The Hendersons were the golden couple. Mark was an architect, quiet, meticulous, the kind of guy who edged his lawn with a ruler. Sarah worked in high-end real estate, flashy, loud laugh, always smelling like expensive vanilla and ambition. They had been married 10 years. From the street, they looked impenetrable. But through my lenses, I saw the cracks. I saw the way they stopped talking the second they crossed the threshold of their front door. I saw the way Mark would sit in his study with the lights off, just staring at the wall. But on this Tuesday, at 4:15 p.m., Mark wasn't home. He was supposed to be at a conference in Chicago. I knew this because I'd heard him telling the mailman to hold their packages for 3 days.
The house should have been empty until Sarah got back from her showings around 6. Instead, a black Mercedes sedan rolled up the driveway. It wasn't Sarah's red Audi. It was a sleek, aggressive-looking car. The driver was a man I'd logged in my notebook 3 times prior. Tall, expensive suit, hair that looked like it was sculpted by wind tunnels. I called him the colleague. Sarah had introduced him once at a block party as Julian from the agency. The car stopped. The engine idled, a low purr that I could hear even through my double-paned glass. Sarah got out of the passenger side. She looked flustered, animated. She was laughing, that performative head-toss laugh she used on clients. She leaned back into the open window. I adjusted the focus wheel, crystal clear. I saw the hand reach out from the driver's seat. It grabbed her wrist, not aggressively, but familiarly. Sarah didn't pull away. She leaned in further. And then it happened. It wasn't a friendly peck on the cheek. It wasn't a goodbye colleague gesture. It was a hungry, desperate kiss.
It lasted for 6 seconds. I counted. 1, 2, 3. Her hand went to his neck. 4, 5. She pulled back, bit her lip, and looked around nervously. She looked right at my window. I didn't flinch. I was behind the sheer curtains. She couldn't see me. But I saw the guilt. It was painted all over her face in high definition. She hurried up the walk, fumbling for her keys, and the black Mercedes reversed out of the driveway with a screech of tires. Now that's the hook. That's the incident. But that's not the story. The story is what happened 20 minutes later. Because Mark wasn't in Chicago. At 4:45 p.m., a gray Ford Taurus, a rental, I noted immediately, turned the corner and parked, not in the driveway, but 3 houses down, in front of the vacant lot. The door opened, and Mark stepped out. He wasn't wearing his usual architect's blazer. He was in a hoodie and jeans. He looked tired. He didn't walk to the front door. He walked through the side gate, moving through the neighbor's hedge line like a ghost. He went into his own backyard. I moved to the bathroom window,
which faces the rear of their property. Mark stood in the shadow of his own oak tree, staring at the back of the house. He was looking at the kitchen window. Through the glass, I could see Sarah. She was on the phone, pacing, twirling her hair, smiling that secret smile people have when they're reliving a moment. She was pouring a glass of wine. Mark watched her. Here's where the unbelievable part starts. Most men, seeing their wife happy and flushed 20 minutes after a secret rendezvous, might storm in. They might scream. They might throw a brick through the window. Mark stood perfectly still for 45 minutes. He didn't move a muscle. It started to drizzle, a cold, miserable October rain, and he just stood there, getting soaked. I watched him through the binoculars. His face wasn't angry. It was blank. It was the face of a man doing math. Complex, painful calculus. He was calculating the cost of his life. He was subtracting the love, carrying the betrayal, and solving for X. And then, he smiled. I shivered.
I'm telling you, the temperature in my room dropped 10 degrees. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator that just realized the cage door is unlocked. It was a cold, terrifying expression of absolute clarity. He turned around, walked back to the rental car, and drove away.
He didn't come home that night. He arrived the next day in his own car, wearing his suit, pretending he had just driven in from the airport. I watched Sarah run out to greet him. She hugged him. She kissed him, the same lips that had been on Julian the day before. Mark hugged her back. He lifted her off the ground. He spun her around. If I hadn't seen the rental car, I would have thought everything was fine. But I knew. Mark was acting, and he was giving the performance of a lifetime. The next 3 months were agonizing to watch. The tension was so thick, I felt like I needed to cut the air between our houses with a machete. I kept waiting for the explosion. I kept waiting for the screaming match at 2 a.m., the sound of breaking china, the police sirens. Nothing. In fact, it was the opposite. Mark became the perfect husband. It was nauseating. He bought her a new car, a white Land Rover, to replace the Audi. He started doing major renovations on the house. I watched contractors coming in and out for weeks. They redid the kitchen. They built a deck.
Mark was pouring money into that house like it was a sinking ship he was trying to plate in gold. And Sarah? She got sloppy. I saw the black Mercedes again. Once in the driveway when Mark was at the gym. Once meeting her at the end of the street. She thought she was safe. She thought Mark was the oblivious, doting fool. She walked around with an air of superiority, that smug look of someone who thinks they're getting away with the crime of the century. But I was watching Mark. Mark was busy. He wasn't just renovating the house. He was renovating his life. I saw him taking calls in the backyard late at night, speaking in low, hushed tones. "The transfer is complete," I heard him say once when the wind was blowing right. Another time, "Yes, the LLC is established. No, her name isn't on it." I started keeping a logbook specifically for Mark's trash. Now, don't judge me. You want to know the truth, you have to get your hands dirty. In the recycling bin, tucked inside a folded architectural digest, I found shreds of paper. I pieced them together. It was a flight itinerary. One way.
To Florence, Italy, for one passenger, Mark Henderson. But the date was for the night of their 10th anniversary party. That was the end game, the party. The invitations were heavy cream cardstock with gold embossing. Join us to celebrate a decade of love and a new beginning. I got one. Everyone on the block got one. Even the mailman got one. And boldly, audaciously, Sarah had invited Julian. She introduced him as a close family friend who had helped them with some investment properties. The nerve of this woman. It was Shakespearean. The night of the party arrived, November 14th. The weather was crisp.
The sky clear. The Henderson house was lit up like a beacon. String lights in the trees. A jazz band playing soft standards on the new deck. Caterers circulating with trays of champagne. I wore my best blazer. I walked over at 7 p.m. sharp. The house was packed. I did a quick head count. Maybe 50 people. Neighbors, Sarah's colleagues, Mark's partners. And there, holding court by the fireplace, was Julian. He looked smug. He was chatting with Mark. I watched closely.
Mark was pouring Julian a drink. Mark was smiling. He patted Julian on the back. It was chilling. It was like watching a spider massage a fly. Sarah was glowing. She wore a red dress that cost more than my car. She was floating from group to group, playing the role of the cherished wife. She had no idea that the ground beneath her feet had already been dug out, leaving nothing but a thin layer of turf over a bottomless pit. At 8:30 p.m., the music stopped. Mark tapped a spoon against his champagne flute. The sharp ding-bing-ding cut through the chatter. The room went silent. Mark stood on the raised hearth of the fireplace. He looked handsome, composed. He held a remote control in one hand. "Thank you all for coming," Mark said. His voice was steady, warm. 10 years. It's a long time. A decade of building a life. Sarah and I have been through so much. Sarah beamed at him, clutching her hands to her chest. "Tonight," Mark continued, "I promised a big announcement, a new beginning."
And I am a man of my word. He pointed the remote at the large flat-screen TV mounted above the fireplace. I've prepared a little presentation, a retrospective of our love. The screen flickered to life. A photo of their wedding day appeared. The crowd awed. Then a photo of their honeymoon in Hawaii. Then a picture of them buying the house. It was sweet. It was standard. Sarah looked at Julian and gave him a tiny, almost imperceptible wink. I saw it. Mark saw it. "But," Mark said, his voice dropping an octave, "relationships are about honesty. They're about knowing who you're really sleeping next to." The slide changed. The room didn't gasp immediately. It took a second for people to process what they were seeing. It wasn't a photo. It was a screenshot, a text message thread. At the top, the contact name was Julian, Agency. The messages were graphic, explicit. Dates, times, hotel room numbers, detailed descriptions of what they did while Mark was at work. The silence in that room was heavier than lead. It was physical.
You could feel the air leave the lungs of 50 people simultaneously. Sarah's face went white, not pale, white, like a sheet of paper. She froze, her champagne glass tilting dangerously in her hand. Julian, standing by the bar, looked like he'd been shot. He dropped his drink. The glass shattered, and the sound was like a gunshot in the silence. "Mark," Sarah whispered. "Mark, what is this?" Mark didn't look at her. He clicked the remote. Next slide. A grainy, black and white photo. It was taken from a low angle. It showed Sarah and Julian in a restaurant booth, holding hands. Then another photo, clearly taken by a private investigator, showing them entering a hotel. "I've known for 3 months," Mark said. His voice wasn't angry. It was conversational. 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. He clicked the remote again. "And during that time, I've been busy." The screen changed to a spreadsheet. "Sarah, you know I handle the finances. You trust me implicitly with the accounts. You signed a lot of papers recently. You thought they were for the renovation loan." Mark gestured to the screen. They weren't. They were transfer deeds and separation of asset agreements. He pointed to a line item highlighted in red. "This house, the one we're standing in, it's sold. We closed yesterday. The new owners move in on Monday. They're a lovely couple, very excited about the new deck." The crowd murmured. A low wave of shock rippled through the room.
But where? Sarah stammered. Her voice was breaking.
She looked like a trapped animal. Mark clicked the remote. The joint savings account? Empty. But don't worry, it's all legal. You signed the authorization. The money went to pay off the debts you didn't know we had. Debts I structured against your personal credit for the business ventures you claimed to run. He was dismantling her, piece by piece, brick by brick. You have the Land Rover, Mark said. I paid the lease up for this month, but starting December 1st, that's on you. And since you're currently unemployed, oh, right, I forgot to mention, I sent these photos to your boss this morning, along with the proof that you were using company funds to pay for those hotel rooms with Julian. Julian bolted. He actually ran. He scrambled for the front door, pushing past the stunned caterers. The front door slammed shut, leaving Sarah alone in the center of the room. Mark finally looked at her. I'm leaving tonight, he said. My flight is in 3 hours. I'm moving to Italy, alone. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a single key. He placed it on the mantel.
This is the key to a storage unit on 5th Street. It contains your clothes and your personal items. Everything else, the furniture, the art, the electronics, was included in the sale of the house. He stepped down from the hearth. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea. No one said a word. No one moved to stop him. He walked right past Sarah, who was trembling so hard her knees were knocking together. He stopped right in front of me. He looked me right in the eye. He knew. He knew I watched. He knew I was the archive. He winked. Then he walked out the front door, got into a taxi that was waiting at the curb, and vanished. The chaos that followed was exquisite. Sarah collapsed, full-blown hysterics, wailing on the floor in her red dress. The guests awkwardly shuffled out, mumbling excuses, fleeing the scene of the social execution. I stayed for a bit, sipping my champagne, watching the ruin. It's been 6 months since the party. The new neighbors are nice. They have a golden retriever, and they play bad pop music on the weekends.
They have no idea what happened in that living room. Sarah is gone. I heard she's living with her sister in Ohio, working at a diner. Julian's wife divorced him. Apparently, Mark sent her a packet of information too. And Mark. I got a postcard yesterday. It had no return address, just a picture of a villa in Tuscany, bathed in golden sunlight. On the back, in neat architectural handwriting, it said, "The view is much better from here." I put the postcard in file 402. I closed the box. I put it on the shelf. I'm back at the window now. It's raining again. The lights are on across the street at the Miller's house. I saw Mrs. Miller hiding a shopping bag in the garage earlier today. And Mr. Miller has been spending a lot of time fixing the sink while texting on a second phone. I have my binoculars. I have my logbook. You think your secrets are safe because you close the blinds? You think because you whisper, no one hears. I hear, I see. The show never ends, and I have a front row seat.